Denim Couch Podcast. Ooh, oh, oh. Ooh, oh, oh.
The 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s with Steph with an F.
Hi guys, welcome to the Denim Couch Podcast, where we chill on this denim couch and talk about the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. I'm Stephanie Tanner. Welcome. Hey guys, it's Stephanie Tanner with the Denim Couch Podcast. And this week's episode is with Rob Paramore. And Rob had some really awesome stories. I love that each person has unique stories, and I really like stories about ordinary places and just the creative things that people end up doing in these ordinary places. And he's got some good ones, so look forward to this interview. It's really good. I also really liked what Rob has to say about how to bring peace into your life during hard times this week. His answer was different than I have heard so far, and I just think it's really important to have something to look forward to and something to hope for. Having something to hope for and just creating things to hope for in your life is pretty important. Keeps you motivated, keeps you hopeful. When you're hopeful, I think you're much more likely to stay positive. As I've mentioned before, I'm just really, really grateful for the small things. Obviously, there's a lot going on in this world. I've been scrapbooking, and scrapbooking is just a form of journaling for me, and I find it really soothing. I know most people don't, but I do. And so I've been looking through all these photos and memories, and I'm just such a lucky person. I'm feeling really grateful for the very sweet and simple things in my life. And while the world goes through so much chaos and commotion, the sweet and simple things in my life are so good. In fact, I've been telling my family and a few friends that I feel great in my personal life because the people around me and the very simple activities that we do are so wholesome and so amazing and so fun, and ultimately they just become excellent memories of the time that we've spent together. And so as I look back while I'm scrapbooking, I'm feeling so grateful that I have these memories and that I have the time that I do with these people. It's really the small, sweet, simple things in life that make this experience so good. Yep, so that is my thought for this week, and let's just dive into the interview. How common was your name in the 80s?
One of my best friends was named Robert. So in that sense, it was kind of common, but probably not super common. Most names were not crazy like they are now. They're pretty basic.
What was life like in the 80s?
Well, probably the first thing that comes to mind is music for some reason. I think 80s music is probably still some of the best music that ever came out of any era, in my opinion. I mean, you had such a wide array and just some fantastic music that came up. You know, you had the big hair bands, and then you had Michael Jackson, and you had, there's a lot of those incredibly good artists that, is still really popular today, honestly. So I'd say music, and I just think of high school and sports and all of that kind of stuff when I think of the 80s. But it was a pretty cool time to live, interesting, a lot of stuff going on. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. 80s was a great time to be around. Yeah, I remember going to a high school dance one time and seeing the first real break dancers, Back then, it was like the beginning of, everybody used to dance together, and then it was kind of just the beginning of where you kind of stand around in a circle and watch somebody dance. But the first time we had a really, really good break dancer was just mind-boggling. It was all right along Michael Jackson's stuff, you know. I
Mhm.
mean, that's kind of, and MC Hammer was big too, and so a lot of guys were doing that as well. So it was a good time.
What did you do for fun in the 80s?
I was heavily into sports, but I was also into hunting and hanging out in the mountains. And so we used to, whenever I didn't have anything going on the weekends, we would get on the three-wheelers now, not four-wheelers. We had three-wheelers, okay, which is probably one of the most dangerous things out there. And I can't even believe they made those. But anyway, we would take off and go up in the hills, go camping on three-wheelers and hunt and fish and shoot stuff, and it was a lot of fun, but mainly sports. You know, I was heavily into that. Played a lot of tennis, basketball, and football, and, you know, all kinds of different sports. But one of the funnest activities that we used to do if we didn't have anything going on a Saturday or Friday night was, of course, if we weren't, you know, driving up and down Main Street, which is very common back then. They don't do that quite as much, you know, on a Friday or Saturday night, go cruise Main Street. But if we didn't have anything going on, we used to go find a golf course, and we would sneak onto the golf course at nighttime and find the ponds that are out there.
Okay.
And we would go and swim for golf balls.
Wow.
And we would literally fill a whole gunny sack full of golf balls, probably like hundreds of golf balls. And then I think the golf grounds crews that used to change the sprinklers back then just absolutely hated us because they would patrol the golf courses and try and find us because they knew we were there, but they could never find us because we would get all camoed up and sneak around and swim in the ponds and get golf balls. And then we would go up in the mountains again on the three-wheelers, and we'd take them up and find the tallest cliffs we could find and hit them off the top. So that was one of our favorite things to do. So, you know, mixing a little pleasure with fun and a little bit of danger at the same time.
What were some popular activities?
You know, we used to go boating a lot. We used to go golfing a lot. We used to go to Lake Powell a lot. That was a great place to go. Camping, hunting, fishing. We did all of those things. That was kind of a big thing for us back then. We used to do a lot outdoors, you know. I mean, we weren't really stuck inside watching TV. I remember my senior year in high school, I think the very first version of Word Perfect came out, which was astonishing that you could actually type on a computer screen and actually delete it and print it out, you know, or, you know, go backwards, change letters. I have to use whiteout on your typewriter. And so that was kind of a big deal. But video games, you know, the old Ataris and those kind of things were just Pong and stuff like that. Maybe a little bit of Donkey Kong came out then, but, you know, you had to actually go to an arcade and play Asteroids, or my favorite, Space Invaders or Galaga or one of those. Those were great. We got out and did stuff, more outdoor stuff. I remember, too, that movies were a big deal back then. You know, you actually went to the movie and we had drive-in movie theaters. You know, those are really cool. But to actually go to the movie and watch a movie, I don't believe this came out in the 80s. It's probably late 70s. But I remember when I think the greatest movie I ever saw in my entire life when I was a kid was Smokey and the Bandit. I mean, it was like, I remember leaving the movie theater just going, oh my goodness, that was the greatest thing. And then when Rocky came out, we went to Rocky, and that was just phenomenal. And, you know, it was just, I don't know too many teenage boys that didn't go home and try some raw eggs, get up in the morning and go run and work out. And just the training sequences in those movies were just amazing. You know, they just inspired you and made you want to get out and go do something. But still love the Rocky movies, and probably before 80s too. But I remember waiting in line for hours to go see Grease when I was a kid.
Do you have any favorite memories from the 80s?
Probably high school sports, I was pretty heavy into playing 3 or 4 different sports. I played tennis and I played football. I wrestled for a couple of years and then played baseball too, a lot of baseball. Loved tennis, played a lot of it, a lot of different tournaments and things. So sports was always my big thing, but I love basketball as well. And, it was just fun. It was always a season. Tennis I kind of played all year round, but it kept me very busy. So probably some of my better memories were, sports and dating. Enjoyed dating. I know a lot of people maybe don't like high school, but I actually enjoyed it.
What was the fashion like back in the 80s?
I was more Levi's. I used to wear those kind of leather, I don't even know what they call them, like camel looking shoes, I don't even remember what they were called. They were kind of a leather shoe but I'd wear those with my Levi's or just tennis shoes. And then generally a t-shirt, which is kind of what I wear today. I haven't changed a whole lot in that. But I think the fashions back then, like I said, were a little bit baggier clothing, big collars, bigger sleeves, baggier pants. Parachute pants kind of came and went pretty quick. I just think the big hair was kind of it was all the rage. I think the bigger and the higher that girls could make their bangs was better, I don't know. They were like, I don't know how they did it. It's like flatten them out and half a can of hairspray or something. Man. I don't know. But I did have a bit of a mullet going on, I got to admit.
Nice. What made you happy back then?
Again, some of the same things I mentioned, friends, hanging out with friends. I think there was nothing probably greater than to have a free weekend. And, my friends' parents owned a cabin up Diamond Fork Canyon. And we had this little pickup truck and we threw this little trailer on and we would throw the 3-wheeler on the back of that. And after school, it's like, we're going. We'd throw in a couple fishing poles and the 22s, and we would literally raid each other's parents' pantries, grab a bunch of canned stuff, stop, pick up a couple steaks out of the freezer on the way out, and go up and we'd just say, it was kind of weird because here's one thing that I think people don't really understand about the 80s and the difference that it is today. So when we left, when we literally pulled out of town and said, "Hey, Mom, we're going up to the cabin on Friday," we literally had no communication with anybody until we got back, like Saturday or Sunday, because there's no telephones. I mean, you couldn't do anything without going and finding a phone and calling somebody. And when you left town, you left town. You shut off everything. The world was gone because nobody could find you. Nobody could communicate unless they drove up and physically talked to you. In a way, it was really refreshing because you just kind of turned everything off. And it's not like that now. You can get reception almost anywhere, and people don't have their phone in their pocket. They start having panic attacks within a half hour. The crazy thing about that is you had to actually plan things in advance. You had back in the 80s, I had to actually call people the night before and make a plan. This is where we're going to be, and we're going to meet you here. We're going to do this, because there's no way to communicate with them after that. And it was really good in a way and really frustrating,
Were you ever scared, unhappy, or anxious?
I graduated in 85, so we were pretty confident, I think. I always had a car. I was pretty independent. Honestly, I look back and the things that I did, I would never think of letting my kids do. It's just crazy. I mean, it was like, hey, we're taking off for the weekend. All right, you guys have fun. They didn't ask us where we were going. Didn't really, how do you check in? We're, up in the mountains. Nobody knows. So it was a different way of living. And so anxious or scared, not so much, but I think our parents had a lot of faith in us, and they actually kind of let us do what we wanted in a lot of ways. But I think it's probably because they kind of trusted us in a way too. Definitely, I would think twice before letting my kids do things that my parents let me do. I think they were kind of naive. My wife graduated from college from high school in 86. We were born the same year, but she was a year behind me in school. And literally, she saved money, and her best friend, as soon as they graduated, they got on an airplane and flew all the way around the world.
Yeah.
I mean, the two of them, with no phone, with no cell phone, with no, you know what I mean? They had, I mean, they started in Hawaii, went to Australia, New Zealand, Europe, and, you know, they went everywhere. And they were gone for weeks and weeks. And parents were like, okay. I mean,
sure.
I just don't see that happening right now.
How would you compare your childhood or teenage years to today's kids?
I don't think they know how to communicate as well, because they literally don't talk to each other as much. You know, I mean, I remember having to pick up my phone and dial some girl's phone number and having her dad answer the phone and give me the third degree before he actually, hey, you know, because it wasn't a cordless phone, right? You know, you have one phone in the house, that's in the kitchen where everybody can hear you. And, you know, and them coming to the phone and me doing small talk and what have you, you know, and, you know, having to have those uncomfortable, awkward situations. Now people shoot a text and you have no idea what their mood is, what their expression is, what their real intent is behind it, because you can't read their voice, you can't hear the tones, you know. And then when they get in a situation where they actually have to communicate, it's so much harder, I think, because, you know, they're like, LOL. I see kids whose parents kind of limit some of that or pull some of that back, or they do a lot more things together as families outside, or, you know, more outgoing, or the kids tend to be a lot more communicative, I guess, instead of just on their phones all the time texting or sending selfies or whatever. But I think there's a lot of fake persona that goes with sending text or pictures to somebody. You know, they might send a happy, smiley, whatever selfie of themselves, and yet they're totally depressed, you know, because they don't want to come across as being this negative nanny or whatever. And yet you don't know that. I mean, you have no idea. But if you talk to them on the phone, you instantly pick up that they're not happy, that something's wrong, something in their voice or whatever. But so, yeah, I would say communication has just changed everything.
What brings you peace or calmness during hard times?
Looking at the big picture helps a lot. And, you know, you're always looking ahead. Okay? What is the big picture here? You know, and we see where we headed. What is, you know, we'll get through this. This is just one of those trying times that you face. Everybody has them. But looking back at times where you've already gone through something similar to this, and it's like, okay, well, we made it through, and this seemed harder than that did. But looking forward, I think, is a big thing. Always having something planned. My wife and I talk about this quite a bit. If we don't have a big thing planned in the next 2 to 3 months, then we go crazy, because that gets us through, you know. It's either a trip to, I don't know, wherever. We went to Moab last month and went and hiked Canyonlands and Arches and did all that, and it was awesome. But if we don't have something like that planned every 3 months to look forward to, then we get caught up in just a funk where you're just kind of going through the motions of life, and it's not really that fun, you know. But when we always have something exciting planned, then it kind of gets you excited and motivates you to, oh yeah, we're going here. You know, we're planning and preparing and looking up maps and finding places to go and things to do, and that helps a lot.
Wasn't that awesome? I really enjoyed Rob's interview, and I'm so glad he was able to do that for us. He actually has a YouTube channel where he tells some really uplifting stories and motivates you, and it's just really enjoyable to listen to during the week. You can find that at Paramore Project. Just search that on YouTube, and Rob is a great storyteller. So go check it out. That's our interview for the week. So have a great week. I will catch you next week for the next episode, and I'll talk to you then. Bye. Wait. You can't miss the embarrassing story of the week. No. Okay. It's that time. It's Steph with an F's embarrassing story of the week. All right, so this week's embarrassing episode happened when I was at the doctor's office and I had to get some tests ordered, and I asked for the THC test instead of the TSH test. and that was pretty embarrassing. To give you some context, I deal with clientele who sells THC for my work, and so I am discussing THC levels quite a bit with certain CBD oil products, and so it's really funny when I asked for the THC test when I in fact do not need one of those. We got a good chuckle out of that, and I just felt like an idiot. So that is my embarrassing story for this week. I hope you guys get a little laugh out of that. And I will talk to you next week. Bye.
If you came here for mental health help, please go visit your doctor. If you're looking for some mental health tips, Dr. Daniel Amen is someone I follow. I love what he has to say and offer. I think his website is brainhealthassessment.com, and he just has some awesome checklist items that go over brain health or habits that you should be doing to have better brain health. I want to say there's like 5 to 10 items, and if you have those, if you're working on those habits and trying to improve them to improve your brain health, you'll also improve your happiness level, because brain health equals mental health. So keep your brains happy and healthy, and check out Dr. Daniel Amen. This is not sponsored. I just really like what he has to say, and I think it's really beneficial. I think it can help a lot of people. It's actually very matter of fact, kind of obvious, but yet we neglect so many of these habits daily. And I do feel like, if you're feeling unhappy, that may be one of the reasons you're unhappy, because you're neglecting your brain health, which is also your mental health. And trying to improve these habits could really help. So check him out. If you have any stories from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, please get in contact with me. Let's chat. I want nothing more than to chat about the past. I want nothing more than to chat about the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. If you have any specific questions that I'm not asking that you would like to know about these eras while interviewing these people, please let me know. I would love some advice, and I would love your input. So, what would you guys like to know?